Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody I won Powerball yet. Oh, all right.
What'd you say?
I'm not saying anything else. Never mind.
I was like, glad I talked over you there. Hello, Hockey World. How are you? I'm at a secret undisclosed location for this podcast today, so shh. Anyway, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of things. We got lots to talk about for crying out. And it's, I mean, geez, we have so much to talk about. The last show was so short, we didn't get into any of the Phil Kessel stuff. We're going to get into that a little bit today. We didn't get into North America not knowing that they had to win in regulation. We'll get into that for sure. And then we have some rumors as well. So got a full head. So let's get started. Here we go. It's September 23rd.
That is correct.
Hockey World, it's Friday, September 23rd, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today we are now awaiting the semifinals this weekend for the World Cup of Hockey. And I think, some of them are. I mean, I did have the right. I had. Let's go back to predictions. Okay, I had Russia and Sweden. I did that. I got those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I had everybody had Canada, and I had the United States. I did, however, say that I could completely envision a scenario. I said this on my blog where Team Europe beat out the United States, but and they did. And then of course last night's game, the U.S. plays the Czechs, and this is a U.S. team that's so done.
I mean,
nothing.
It was so apparent after I guess after it was 1-1. You kind of knew that this game was teetering on the edge already.
Yeah, it was, and there was. I mean, there's just no motivation for that team right now to play. I mean, basically, the ones who are still there are being told that they'll be replaced in a couple years by the young kids anyway. No one wants to get hurt going into the season at this point. I mean, that it's almost like the NHL should have just called that game. Just like it's an NHL event. What's the point of even having that game?
Well, I have to say that it was 2-2, and the Czechs scored 2 goals in like less than a minute. And at that point, I said, "Forget this. I'm not watching it anymore." It was too. Yeah. It was too embarrassing. It was too deflating. I don't know if they quit or there was just not a lot of motivation there, but. I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was just not.
You held on longer than I did. I guess at 1-1 it was on at the All American Prospects game, so I watched some of it, and I still didn't see what I wanted to see. I mean, I did see a goal, but it was almost just like hey, look, Pavelski finally got a goal. I was bitching and I was like mentioning to a buddy, hey, when's Pavelski really going to start scoring here? They sort of built a team around him, and Tortorella built him up. And we like Pavelski, but in this tournament, he didn't come through at all.
Oh yeah, I mean, he didn't, and they really tried to feed him the puck every chance they could too. I mean, especially on the power play, they kept putting him in that like Ovechkin one-timer spot to try to get him in, get him a goal there. Somebody sent me this. I just love this. I got to put this up. We're not going to get banned for this. Don't worry. This is YouTube, but we will not get banned for it. I checked already. With people. So here it is. This is I want you to watch this carefully. Because if you can see, if you don't understand Finnish, this is the World Cup of Hockey 2016 Finland goal montage. Here we go, ready? That's it.
Yeah. So even though you were right about the teams, I only got to predict a little, and I would have predicted North America going further, so I would have been out anyhow. I had Sweden. I remember I liked Finland. Finland's out, so I clearly wasn't going to do a good job. But you have to admit, Matthews has killed Laine in this tournament.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. And, and I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say he hasn't, I mean, and I was.
It's not all on Laine. You can't expect a team to be built on the back of a kid. Mike and I thought that was a problem from the get-go, really.
Right.
Yeah, right. It was not very subtle how ESPN did some 11th hour refocusing, because all of a sudden after it was clear that Finland was not good, that Laine was not going to blow up and Finland was not going to win a game or not even come close to winning a game, did they turn their attention towards Matthews, to the point though, and Russ, I mean, they're promoting him from being from San Ramon, California, which he was basically a zygote there, and then he ended up, the family moved to Arizona when he was like a month or 2 months old.
2 months old.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, come on, give me a break, please.
That's a good name for the Vegas team, the Zygotes. I like that. I think that's gonna. Wow. Wow. Yeah. No. I agree. And it was. I mean, he was amazing. I mean, Matthews was incredible. I'm really, like I said before, I'm depressed that we're never going to see this team play again.
It was fun.
One time with ESPN, I actually watched the beginning of the Swedish game again today, just on replay on ESPN because it was that much fun. It's it's going to get into. We have to get into it now. North America, okay, did not know that they had to win this game. Now I want to throw this out in regulation. Now this is just astonishing, and we can debate, and we will debate about tiebreakers. Like, should there be a tiebreaker with goal differential or head-to-head? The NHL hockey and soccer handle this very differently. We were in a chat with Jillian Fisher last night, who points out that soccer usually won't have head-to-head. It's always goal differential, even if there's 3 teams tied, or even if there's 2 teams tied. I mean, which normally with hockey, the history has been, in the regular season, if 2 teams are tied, that it's head-to-head, right? So,
but there's a bigger body of work there during the regular season as opposed to 3 games.
Yeah, but I still think if you play a team, it feels weird. Like, I've been in tournaments and soccer tournaments where this hasn't counted, where a team that we beat went through, like where we were tied record with them, and that does feel strange. Like if you're like, okay, you're sitting there and we're 2-1 and they're 2-1, we beat them, but just because they scored more goals against this crappy team, they go through, and that seems like kind of a crazy. I'm still a fan of head-to-head when there's 2 teams involved. I don't think there's any better way of solving it than who beat who. If you're tied with each other, I think that's.
What do we say about the information not being readily available? Because there was a lot of confusion.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Now, I don't know. I saw something during this game, and I don't know if what I saw had anything to do with this. But after this all came out that they didn't know, and I thought that maybe McKinnon didn't know and a couple other people, but after this came out, they didn't know. In between the second and third periods of this game, I was up in the press box, and I saw somebody with a clipboard from Team North America running frantically, trying to say something. We got to get this information out to them. I have no idea what that was. I don't think that was this necessarily because they still didn't know. But I mean, you have to look when you're in tournaments like this. You have to know the rules of the tiebreakers. You have to, and they suck. They're boring to read. They're horrible. But Kevin and I looked them up. We found them. So we knew them. We knew them going in, and everybody in the press box knew them. You read them. You're like, okay, this means that they have to win in regulation. And you knew that Sweden knew that because Sweden, towards the last 5 minutes of the game, the team Sweden was lagging the puck. They were soccering them, as I like to say. They were throwing the puck back and forth. They were just lagging. And when the game ended, in regulation, there was celebration on the Swedish.
Yeah, they high-fived. They knew, but they're also veterans, and so you kind of wonder because the other guys aren't veterans. Maybe there should have been an emphasis either from the coaching staff or from the tournament advisors or whatever to sort of let them know where they stood because, hockey players, we all know they're monofocused. They are focused strictly.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think this is the players' fault.
No.
This is solely on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
The coaching staff.
And I think it was a conscious decision from what – I couldn't really understand what McClellan was saying.
No, he didn't say anything finite, which means that in my opinion, that they just didn't know.
And well, it sounded like they knew and that they consciously decided, no, these are kids, so I'm not going to put extra pressure on them. And that's the impression that I got, but it wasn't really clear with what he was saying.
Doesn't make any sense. Put extra pressure on them. I mean, you took away a chance for them to win the tournament.
Right.
It's like by not. I mean, that's not extra pressure. That's just like, okay, you go out. When you compare the way they played a goal down against Russia in the last 5 minutes versus the way they played tied against Sweden in the last 5 minutes, it's all you need to know. Like they were not going to win. They were clearly not going. I honestly think, and no one would admit this, I think they were actually going. They were trying to get it to overtime. I think their feeling was, we go 3-on-3 with the Swedes, we're going to kill them.
It's possible, but I think if they'd have known, like the other way, like you said, that they would have poured it on. And
and Couturier's line played twice in the last 5 minutes of that game.
You're right about that.
I mean, that Couturier, Trocheck, and Saad, that line shouldn't be playing that much when you're in that situation. Like there was no, but there wasn't. Did they call a timeout even? I can't remember if they called a timeout.
I can't remember now.
I don't think they did. I mean, they should have. I mean, not pulled a goalie, but almost. I mean, everybody knew that if you were banging on Finland beating Russia, you were really up the creek. I mean, you couldn't expect that was going to happen, And it's a shame because it's just a shame now, and it's inexcusable. I mean, honestly, it really is. And I'm sure in time people will talk off the record and behind the scenes. But I did talk to a couple of people behind the record, or behind the scenes and off the record, and they said flat out that they didn't know, and these are players, and they just didn't. They thought that they were, and I said the reaction. You saw the reaction when McKinnon scored. It was obvious that they thought that they had gotten.
Yeah, they thought they were going through.
Thought they'd advanced. So anyway, they didn't, and so here we are now with the Final Four teams, and I think that it's going to be a good Final Four. Still, it doesn't. You still have 4 very good teams, and there's no shame in Team Europe. I mean, Team Europe is.
But before we go there, though, and there has to be something said about the refereeing, because clearly for a couple of Team North America's games, it wasn't great, and then the McDavid getting tackled and him getting called for the penalty, right? That was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was a terrible call. And I saw how the referee saw that as a hold on McDavid because of the angle he was at, but it was just such a bad call, And I really thought McDavid was going to score when he came out of the penalty box, though, because he was on, he was
mad.
Angry is really pretty scary.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a tournament. Everybody wants to win. We've been given something here that's nice to watch, but then when you see stuff like this, you get annoyed.
Yeah, you do, and I do think like there was some talk about this team is interesting, and maybe there should be a under 24 team that does a little bit of an NHL tour before in the preseason. There's some thoughts of that this could continue this, because I actually think that there's something to be said about the learning together as a group versus being with an NHL team early in the preseason. I think that it's going to help these players. It really does.
From a marketing perspective, I'm all for it. I've always been all for marketing the younger players, and it would.
Yeah. I mean, I know they got the All-Star game right with the 3-on-3 last year, but I'm like I said yesterday, I'm all for an under 25 versus over 25 All-Star game. I think that would be.
I think it would be fantastic.
Well, that would be great, but I've heard some proposals regarding the Olympics and the Olympics being 23 and under. Rather than sending all your veteran players, that it would be every country, it would be it would be like a little bit of an older World Junior tournament. But I think that would be just as compelling as
I don't see the NHL doing that at all.
The NHL probably wouldn't, but I'm in favor of it because of what Mike said. I think.
But you still have to shut down the league because the players are major players.
No, you keep playing with your veteran players.
Right. You don't have to shut down the league then, because each team would lose like 2-3 players. That's all.
Right, exactly.
No, it's too impactful. The NHL,
they're not going to do it. They wouldn't do it.
No.
The way the NHL is, with the parity in this league, you're going to take Gaudreau away from Calgary for that kind of time. You're going to ruin their chances of making the playoffs. It's basically you can't do it. I mean, you just can't.
No, but it's fun. It's fun. It was fun to think about for a second. That's all.
Yeah, no, I like the idea. I mean, I think it would make some sense, but it's really it's impossible. This is the first time that the U.S. ever in an international tournament went winless. By the way, just for the website. Before the tournament began, none of us really loved their chances. You liked them better than most, but I didn't expect them to go winless. And I remember saying to Mike one time, if they go winless, it will be the worst tournament that I've probably seen in my lifetime for USA Hockey. For where there was at least some expectations. Now, the end all for that is they shouldn't have raised expectations with this club. Like Tortorella shouldn't have said, we're building it to beat Canada. They should have just gone into the tournament sort of like ho-hum, like, hey, this is our team, and we like our chances, and leave it there. Right. No, I think that would have been smart. I mean, and hindsight is what it is. This team. It was Sochi was only 2 years ago. It's like, but the next Olympics are only 17 months away. So there's that too, right?
Funny, look how much has changed in 2 years, speed-wise, defense-wise.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, And I heard it said that some of the changes were done because it was on a North American ice surface and not on an Olympic ice surface, and that was a contributing factor of why guys like Falk and Shattenkirk weren't chosen. But you know what? Those guys succeeded on North American ice, so why wouldn't you want this game is going in the direction of speed and skating and skill, and not I don't think you bring Jack Johnson and you don't bring Matt Niskanen to an international tournament like this any longer. You bring your most skilled offensive guys.
I'm going to say something crazy to Europeans, but not to North Americans, and that is, I wish they would do away with the Olympic ice surface, because I'm hearing a lot of young players at a lot of different tournaments, even when they're from overseas, tell me that they like playing on the shorter surface. They just do. And they like the contact. They like it better. And I think at some point, why not get universal with that? It would make a big difference when they do match up internationally, because then there would be no difference. The only difference would be like the guys in the KHL. You can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, and you would think that every arena in Europe would want to grab a couple more seats, right? I mean, there's from a business point of view, adding more rows. I mean, I know a lot of the arenas over there now are adjustable. They can do either, and that's something that's interesting too. I'm with you. I mean, most people tend to think that the European surface is bigger, going to create more space and more offense, but honestly, it doesn't. Talking to people, it creates more of a soccer type atmosphere. Actually, sometimes more of a pass around. You can definitely, the skilled players don't necessarily show up all that much more,
No, and you have to have faster shifts. Guys get tired quicker because of the extra skating.
You spend a lot of time chasing the pucks down, and there's a lot of, it's definitely, I'm with you on that, very much so. So fans last night in the arena chanting, "We want Kessel," during the USA game.
It's just a massive troll job by Canadians at the ACC. I mean, that's basically all it is. I mean,
that is a troll job, yeah.
No, you got to give them credit. It's a funny one.
It's a funny one.
But with great amounts of irony in it.
But I'll tell you this, and I may be proven wrong, but I'm fairly sure Phil Kessel has played his last game internationally for USA Hockey. I will tell you that right now. There is no way in hell that any management group involved, if USA Hockey, whether it be Dean Lombardi or if somebody takes over from Dean Lombardi, is going to choose Phil Kessel after.
I agree.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't.
This is why I agree.
It's not.
I mean, I know Tortorella said what he said yesterday, and he's right. I mean, to a degree, this is definitely. I mean, Kessel didn't help himself, you would say there, but at the same time, this is. The next coach of that team will be Mike Sullivan, okay? Mm-hmm. Phil Kessel's a Penguin still. I can easily see that I could easily see this being bridged and this gap being bridged and saying, okay, and him saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. I was frustrated. And I could see this.
Hey, I'm good with that if they want to do that. But what we've learned to grow up and know is that that's usually not the case.
Right, and you're right to say that
magnitude.
You're right to say that Sullivan, might be the coach, and that might increase the chances. But not only USA Hockey, but the players on that team, they weren't sure based on what Kessel tweeted out, what he was saying, because it sounded accusatory towards the players, and I think that is more detrimental going forward to his chances than any grudge that management or the coaching staff might have. You don't want this lack of esprit de corps if guys like David Backes or Patrick Kane or whoever think that this guy was criticizing them for their effort against Canada or in the World Cup. So I think that has a chance of ruining any chances of him playing internationally for USA Hockey ever again.
I do have to challenge one little thing too, and I really do like Dean Lombardi, I always have, but defending we wanted to get players with heart because these players have heart. Yeah, heart's great, but if the legs are a little slower, a little older, a little tired, it doesn't matter how much heart you have in this game anymore. It just
and heart, and that's to me as damaging as what Phil Kessel said to the players who didn't go. I mean, that's sitting there and saying that the players that didn't go don't have heart, and that's kind of like, Bobby Ryan's got a ton of heart.
He does,
and he's not going anywhere. I mean, his tweet was pretty funny. He just said what he said, and I mean, And Phil Kessel sure played like he had heart in the playoffs. And, I don't think Phil Kessel's without heart either. I think he's not.
He was arguably the best player in the playoffs. So,
yeah, and I just think that why I don't buy any of this is simple. This whole thing is going to be blamed, right or wrong, on Lombardi and Tortorella. It's not going to be blamed on the players. The players themselves are not blaming themselves. They are blaming the team. So there are more players that agree with what Phil Kessel tweeted out than don't. On that team, and the players who don't, like Backus, have played their last game with USA anyway. Right. So to me, this is, they want to win. I don't ever question that somebody wants to win or doesn't. They all do. They all feel special putting on the sweater. I get all that, but you have to be smart enough to know what the competition is, how these guys are going to be in this kind of thing. Yeah. Are they slow starters? Again, and just going back to like Jonathan Quick. He automatically gets handed the job. Right. Where if they took a poll, there are a lot of people that wanted to see more of Corey Schneider, except for the little bit in the one game where he didn't have a great game, and we never saw him again until the last game. And so, like, those kinds of things are the things that get fans mad, but the fans don't get to run the show here, even though they're all invested. As an American, we're all invested, and yet there's very little, input.
I think that after 1998, the Team Canada, Hockey Canada had a summit regarding the direction of hockey in Canada, skills, and the national team, and what they should bring to international competition. I think that has to be done with USA Hockey, and I think this should be the last tournament where you are putting together a team specific for beating one other team. Just bring your best players. Bring all of them. Bring all your weapons. Why are you going to go into an international competition with one arm tied behind your back? It's stupid.
Well, how about this? I mean, this is something I always bring up for the World Juniors. Enlarge your camp. Make guys earn spots on the team. Tell everybody day one, we appreciate everything you've done before. We know what you've done before, but we're only really counting on what you're doing right now. Because this is a right now tournament. This is 2 weeks right now. What you did before doesn't matter.
Yeah, there will definitely be backlash to this in the coming days. We'll find out more. I think Lombardi and some of the others there, like Burke perhaps, and others that are part of this thing could be out. I think that there's a group there that's that group has now not succeeded very well. Now it's starting to look like people are starting to say Vancouver, they got lucky. You're already hearing that a lot.
They didn't get lucky
in Vancouver. They had players that were still able to score, and they brought their best team with them to Vancouver.
And in Vancouver, you cannot underestimate what a hot goaltender does for you.
And in Sochi, Quick was incredible too, and and some of this tournament he was as well. I mean, this is I don't put this on Quick either. I do think that
I don't put it on him, but he was handed the job, and really he never had to fight for his job.
And I don't understand Bishop over Schneider, and I don't think anyone did. That was kind of a strange one as well. That's just a personal decision, I guess. I mean, Tortorella, when he came out yesterday and said that stuff about Kessel's not helping his cause, you got to shut up there. You can't say that kind of stuff. To me, it was just as bad as what if you're trolled, you shut up, and if you shut up in a troll battle, the person who speaks last loses, And that's really to me, that's what Tortorella did yesterday. He spoke last and he lost. Otherwise, if you let Kessel just hang out there and ignore it,
I mean,
he has a chance of getting his way, but I think, and the fans are split on it. There are some fans that think that Kessel was wrong. There's some fans that think he was okay.
Well,
but I did hear something that I really thought was true today, and that we have to remember that Kessel's got a history, right? So if this had been Luongo tweeting the same thing, would this have gotten the same kind of outrage? And I don't think it would have. I think this is a lot of this has to do with it would have been Luongo's just being a goofball, because he's said stuff in the past all the time about situations like this. So I think Kessel, in a way, gets the raw end of the deal there.
That's fair. I mean, he's put up points. He may not have put up points in the right games last Olympics, but he always puts up points. It's not like you're going to walk away saying Phil Kessel didn't do anything. He didn't score anything. That's never the case.
Well, I mean, I think him and Van Riemsdyk early in the Olympics were the two best forwards for Team USA. But I mean, in regards to Tortorella, I mean, at that point, Tortorella knows he's never going to coach Team USA ever again. More than likely, he's not going to be part of any USA Hockey club going forward. Now he's going back to being the Columbus Blue Jackets head coach. And who does Kessel play for? Pittsburgh. So he really has nothing to lose by saying something about Kessel, because now it's back to the Metropolitan Division battle. So I think that's what was going on there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do. So it was a funny thing that happened at the press in the press room yesterday. Apparently, Andrei Markov was asked by someone.
By Mark Masters of TSN. I saw this.
By Mark Masters of TSN, yeah. If he feels like this is his last opportunity on the international stage, to which Markov responded, "No, you think it's your last response." No, this is like something my daughter would say. No, I can ask you the same question. I can ask the same question to you, and he stared him down. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this.
Markov's a funny guy, though. He is. He. You know, there's not a mean bone in this guy's body when it comes to doing interviews. So I think he was having a little fun with that, and I think that was his way of sort of shooting back. Look, I mean, again, if everybody were telling us, "Hey, you guys, you were good like 2 years ago on this show, but you're just not as good now," we would probably take offense to it too. And at some point, players do take offense to hearing the same rhetoric, especially when they're doing better than expected. And we have to admit, Markov is doing better than expected. So now he does have the right to shoot back. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but the thing is, that might be a little off base because the Russian defense is so bad that in 2 years Markov may still be on that team. I mean, they're going to get Provorov, but they're not going to. I don't know how many more defensemen they're going to get that can, that could replace a 39 or 40-year-old Markov. So, maybe pushing him out the door isn't going to happen. But I mean, to that point, I mean, we're going to talk about Russia, Canada. I mean, that's the soft spot with the Russians. If Bobrovsky stands on his head, I think the Russians have a chance. But, Team Canada is going to attack that defense mercilessly tomorrow night.
There's no question about it.
You would think.
Okay.
If I'm Russia, I just want to get on top. I mean, that's the thing. They need to have a lead. They need to try and sting Canada early and get like a 2-0 lead. Then I think that might change the complexion of the game a little bit. If I were Russia, I would actually not roll 4 lines at the beginning, and I would double ship my best lines early to try and get an early lead. And because if they can go up 2 goals, that would help Bobrovsky a lot.
Yeah, I think it would also put the pressure on Team Canada at the ACC. I mean, yes. They get up 1-0, 2-0, and Bobrovsky standing on his head, then the sticks will get tight. It's not sawdust anymore. It's composite. Yep. But the composite will be coming out of their hands. But
I don't think this game is going to be close.
No, neither do I. But I mean,
I honestly don't think this Russian team is very good. I think that they.
Well, if Datsuk doesn't play, they're not. They're even weaker, and they're saying he's quite.
I mean, they played a terrible game against Sweden, and they almost got to the end where this team refuses to shoot the puck. They are passing off great opportunities. They are not a unit at all. They don't.
No, they're 12 individuals. I mean, and I think X frozen here.
Who's the guy who had 2 goals last game, though?
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay.
Who was the guy who had 2 goals last game? His last name starts with a T.
Yeah. Is it Tarasenko?
No, not Tarasenko. The other guy.
Lagan.
Right. What is his contract status?
We looked this up. He has the right. He's in the KHL. His rights are owned by the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
I'm
going to tell you something, whether it means anything or not. So, in the press area for the All-American Prospects game, we were watching the replays, and there's a lot of scouts there. A lot of scouts noticed his play. That's all I can say.
I can tell you because I noticed him a couple times blocking shots against Team North America where he was like riding the pain. I mean, he was selling out. He was putting his body on the line to block shots. I mean, that's the type of guy, type of role player.
So we might see him in the NHL one way or the other.
I think he's old.
Guy, really big player. I
I think he's like 27 years old. I'm gonna check, but I think he's older.
He plays a defensive center role for them, and he does. He got hurt so many times, but he continued to battle through. I mean, he got like you said, Mike. He was laying himself out for shots. He got so many times he was like just crawling off the ice, trying to get off.
Now he's a center, right?
Yeah.
Center, yeah.
Yeah. So Winnipeg's kind of loaded at center, but I could see Winnipeg entertaining offers for a guy like this. It wouldn't shock me.
I mean, it's just they just have his rights as far as I know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's 24, and according to this, he signed a 3-year contract with CSKA Moscow. Now, some of those deals have buyout clauses, so if there was a team interested, they could somehow get out of that contract.
All I can say is he's being watched now. He's raised his play enough that teams here are watching him. There's no doubt.
Let's talk about the prospect game, Russ, that you went to yesterday.
So it was really a good game. It was a 6-4 game, so there was a lot of offense. It's a tough game for goaltending, but Caden Primo really did well. And I thought he, considering he used to play in that building as a mite on ice while we were covering Flyers games. So that's, it's an amazing thing. And he really can handle the spotlight of having a dad who was an assistant coach for him. Keith Primo was an assistant coach for him. And just the mention of him in this area, he knew that there's a lot of questions he'd have to answer. He handled it well, and he played well. He made like 17 saves. I really liked the way he played. He played well in the Holinka over the summer. So he is a guy now that's on scouts' radar. And so, good for him. I don't know if he's going to be a second, third, fourth round kind of pick. That'll depend on, what he does during the season. But he did well. Kayla Yamamoto did well. Again, I mean, this kid's just dynamite, and he's just the kind of player that, it's weird because until the under-18s, he was probably very thought about, underutilized, and now his last couple of tournaments have just been dynamite, and he's great. Casey Middlestad's another name. He did fantastic. He's going to probably be somewhere in the top 10 or 15. So, there were a good 4 or 5 players that had legit shot at being first-round picks, and so that's why that kind of game is highly scouted.
Yeah. Now, the top overall guys weren't there, right?
No, everybody, anybody who you would expect was there. It's just that, and again, there's always a lot of guys that'll be 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders that play in that game too.
Sure.
Pastujov has a brother, Nick, who plays he got drafted by the Islanders now. He played in the game last year. He went in the 7th round. But, hey, you get drafted. These kids are trained well enough now that they really don't have amazing expectations about where they're going to go. They just want to get drafted.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So it was good. What kind of how many people did they have down there for the game?
Lower bowl. They didn't get anything more than the lower bowl, but I think, and there were some people in the club box area too. So, I think the crowd was a little less than Buffalo, but pretty close. But the thing is, this is what I always tell people. Whoever gets to see it online on TV, that's good. The team that benefits the most for this is the Flyers because you have John LeClaire coaching one of the teams. You got Mark Howe coaching the other. Now, yes, Mark Howe does work with the Red Wings, but he certainly talks to Flyers. So I'm sure he and John talked about players. And so you get a little intel on these players before the draft. They're in your building. You get to see them play. You might run into them. So the Flyers really get a leg up on this draft as a result because there are always players in these games that all of a sudden get on the radar that weren't. Dylan Larkin is one of them. Dylan Larkin wasn't highly on everybody's radar until after that game. Then all of a sudden it was like, all right, we knew he was something, but now he's even more than we thought.
Interesting.
And so that happens a lot in these kinds of games. And so, that's going to benefit the Flyers. But it was, from a scouting perspective, it was full, man. There were tons. Even Las Vegas was there, whatever you want to call them.
They're going to call them. That's so. You've also Mike's been covering in Toronto. We've been covering the Leafs training camp. Russ has been covering the Flyers training camp in Philly. Mm-hmm. So let's start with you, Mike. Anything exciting up there?
Well, the funny thing was that the one moment of excitement, or the one bit of excitement that I think media and fans were sort of looking forward to, was finding out what was going on with Joffrey Lupul. And a piece on Wednesday came out on TSN indicating that Lupul had failed the physical and would be placed on injured reserve at the beginning of the season, likely meaning that his career in Toronto is over with. This is the thing with Stefan Robidell last year was that he was placed on IR after the preseason. This time, apparently he failed the physical after he had stomach muscle surgery in February. The piece indicated that he would be talking to the media on Thursday. When the media was there asking for different players to speak to, Lupul was unavailable. So and basically after Lou Lamoriello addressed the media, a one paragraph, maybe two paragraph statement came out basically saying that Lupul was still feeling discomfort on this stomach muscle situation, and that he would have no further contact or no further comment with the media. So basically, you will not hear from Joffrey Lupul probably again, unless I think he's either will never play in the NHL again, or maybe at the end of this year if he has if he rehabilitates this injury to the point where he's not feeling any pain, then they may buy him out and he could try to catch on with another NHL team. But it doesn't sound too good at the age of 33, and he turned 33 today.
Right.
I think Joffrey Lupul's career is over with.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, it's got to be strange with no Matthews there, but Marner's there, right? So what's happening? What's he been like?
Well, I mean, there were 8 players that were not there. Freddie Anderson was still injured from the Olympic tournament that he was participating in before the World Cup. I mean, Marner, I saw a few games at the rookie tournament. Basically, all the thing that happened on Thursday was just interviews, and he's put on a few pounds since the summer, and that's one of the big focuses of of training camp, is whether he'll be strong enough to be able to play in the NHL. I think that the Leafs, no matter how he does in training camp, will give him at least the 9 games. It seems to be right now that 40-game mark is more the line of demarcation for Marner. I mean, they may burn a year of entry level, but it wouldn't burn a year in terms of unrestricted free agency if he plays less than 40 games. They'll play him in the first half of the season, and depending how he does, if he's still struggling, then they can send him to the World Junior, and then he can go back to the Ontario Hockey League. But I think they're going to give him every opportunity to prove that he can play in the NHL. I'm just not sure. He's very slight. He's tried to get stronger. I'm not 100% sure he's ready for the NHL, but I think the exhibition schedule is going to prove that one way or the other.
Yep.
I mean, all you can say is look at Johnny Gaudreau. He still doesn't look like he's got any.
It's different. It's true. There's no difference there, except I don't know how to explain it either. Because look, Gaudreau really doesn't get banged around. And Marner evades his fair share too, but I think for whatever reason, Gaudreau is a better skater than Marner, and I think at the end of the day, that's what keeps him healthy. Because, and I think that's probably the worry is if Marner is still slight, and is he going to be able to avoid all of that at the NHL level, where Gaudreau has proven he can.
Remember, Gaudreau came into the NHL much older now too.
He did come in older, and that does make a difference too, but it's not like he's grown that much or gotten that much stronger. I haven't noticed any kind of difference that way with Gaudreau, but I just have noticed that I think he's a better skater, and he's definitely one of the better skaters in the league. So I think he's a better skater than Marner. So that's where I think we have to just sort of wait and see if Marner can, still be elusive at the next level. And like Mike said, I think that'll come out in preseason.
Well, one of the questions that was asked to Lou Lamoriello was regarding the American Hockey League, and as we know, Marner can't play in the AHL because he's 19, and Lou, as he usually does, skillfully avoided I think the crux of the question. But I believe that if it was available to him to play in the American Hockey League, that's where Marner would be starting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What they did last year with Nylander, they played him the entire year. They called him up at the end of the year. I think that is what they would have done with Marner, but they just don't have that option.
Right.
That was ideal. Now, Mike, do you get the feeling that it sort of has died down, the preseason hype on Marner? Like, because during 3 months ago, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's definitely making the Leafs. There's no question about it. Anybody else who said anything otherwise was sort of getting ripped on Twitter. Do you feel like that subsided a little right now?
It may have subsided because it was August and it was early September, but I think the fact that he didn't like jump out and have a ridiculously great rookie tournament. He played 2 games and he made a couple nice plays, but he also made a couple plays that if Mike Babcock was watching in the stands, I think he would have torn his hair out. So, I mean, I think it's all going to depend when Babcock gets there after October 1st, after Canada probably wins the World Cup, and he gets a look at what Marner's doing. He's been Marner's biggest champion in terms of, I think he's a skilled player. He's really pumping him up, but I think he's got to show something. He's got to show that maturity. He's got to show that ability to stay away from the physical pounding that you get in the NHL. And if he can do that, then I think they'll give him an extended look. If it's clear that he's not ready, sort of like Sam Reinhart with the Sabres in his draft year. He came up, he played 9 games. He clearly was not ready or strong enough to play in the NHL. They sent him back to, I think it was Kootenay and the WHL, and he had a great year, and he played in the World Junior, and he was fantastic, and then he came back a much stronger player the following year. There's nothing wrong with going back as a 19-year-old. It worked for Max Domi, and if Marner is not ready for it, I think that eventually they'll send him back to London.
Yeah, I've got 2 quick Flyers stories. So one of them will be Sam Morin. It's kind of interesting what's happened with him in the sense that it felt like with the Craig Berube system, the way the NHL was then, he was really close to making the team, right, Eck? I mean, he literally was one of the last cuts, if not the last cut, out of preseason. But now the NHL's changed, right? With the model that we're seeing, the stay-at-home defenseman, you have to be more than that now. You can't just be simply a stay-at-home defenseman. You got to be able to move the puck and make good. Like, basically, I heard Alain Vigneault give a press conference today saying that for Dylan McIlrath to make the team, yes, he has to be good defensively, but his outlet passes have to be great, and he has to be smart, and he has to skate well. And so, like, now, this is what's basically, even from a bottom-pairing defenseman, this is what you have to do. And Morin pretty much said that to me. For the first time, he said, you know what, scoring in juniors is different. I have to play a role here. So I think he is fully recognizing now where he will fit in someday with the Flyers, and that's good. Whether it's this year or next year, maybe he'll start in the A, and he'll, because of the logjam situation, and maybe he'll get called up at some point, and he'll really get an audition. That'll probably happen at some point, but if not, it'll definitely be next year. But at least now you could see the maturity of him where he's like, all right, I know what I have to do here and to be a pro. And so I thought that was a really good discovery on his part. Some players never get that.
Yeah. And I guess the other question that a lot of Flyers fans have is Provorov and Sanheim and Konechny. I think those are the 3 guys everyone's kind of looking at like, okay, how are they looking?
They all look good, but the problem is they have a lot of players. So so Travis Sanheim, I think, has made leaps and bounds beyond what he was originally. And I think Provorov is Provorov. Like, he still looks like he's that first guy in no matter what.
Right.
But how much room is there on the Flyers' blue line? So I'm pretty sure Sanheim's not going to make it just because there's not enough room. I'm pretty sure Provorov this year will end up being either the last guy making it or the last guy cut, because he's got to make a top 4 role. They don't want him in a bottom pairing situation. He's got to play in all situations, or you're not really training him for the future. So that's going to be the caveat with Provorov. And now the dark horse could be Philip Myers, because he's fully healthy. He had hip and pubic bone surgery. So he has come in now with, like, great speed again. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. And, boy, his outlet passes are sharp. His turning is tremendous. His skating is great. And he's got that size. And so you do kind of wonder, he's 20. I believe Myers is 20. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what he is. And so now you kind of wonder, is he going to walk into a spot if all of a sudden someone gets injured just because of the size factor, and maybe because he doesn't have to play a top 4 role, even though he, fully capable, but maybe never on the Flyers because they are getting pretty deep in defense, that maybe he's a guy that ends up walking in and taking a role. He is very determined. He almost didn't even want to talk about losing the, getting hurt in the Memorial Cup and then eventually not being able to, try and win it. So that really hurt him. But he goes, look, I'm moving on. But he's a determined kid, and so that was interesting too.
It was very good. And Konechny, solid.
Konechny looks solid. Yeah, he looks strong. He looks good. He's skating well. There was no coverage on that Flyers Islanders game on the island, so I really don't know how he did there.
Right.
But what Dan said to me in a text was all the guys that you would expect to do well did well, so I would assume that he looked good. He's got a real shot. There's no question. But again, do you want him playing third line breaking into the NHL, or do you want to wait until there's a second line spot for him? Sure. I think that's the question that'll be grappled. That's what they're going to be going after in this preseason is he's got the look of a top 6 player. Now,
It's a question. It's a question if they like these young guys so much, they're going to have to create space. I mean, who do they move out? Do they move out a Reed or a Raffle, or move out somebody younger, but like a Lawton or a Cousins? That's the roster spot.
It's interesting that the Flyers have 2 guys I think are going to kind of not. I'm not going to say Bellemare is an iffy player, but he's with all the players coming in. I think he does have to battle still.
He's looked good in the World Cup, though. He really has looked good.
Yeah, so he's sat there, and then Mark Streit, of course, is playing as well. So, he hasn't looked so great in the World Cup.
No, he hasn't looked so great. So you do kind of wonder, in the last year of his deal, could they get him moved out before the roster freeze happens? Well, not the roster freeze, but the roster for the beginning of the season. Maybe that's a possibility if they see some opening there. One thing I forgot to mention about Moran, he rehabbed over the summer with Gostisbehere and Giroux. I thought that was pretty cool that they sort of let the young guy hang out with them, and that probably helped him too.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Moran 2 years ago came into camp and looked like, in that Berube camp really looked awesome. And he was, way ahead of schedule. And then last year kind of disappeared, and we didn't hear much about him at all. Even though he played in the Phantoms, I think Sanheim's probably a Phantom.
Yeah, right? I think he's a Phantom to start. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
not through any fault of his own, really.
Right. Konechny and Provorov can't be, right? So they're
right.
Provorov missed it by 2 weeks. He was born in early January. If he would have been born in late December, he could play in the American Hockey League. But he's in the same situation that Marner is. It's either the Flyers or back to Brandon. And
the same thing with Marner. Like the Leafs don't want him to play a bottom 6 role to break into the NHL because the matchups are bad. You're playing against tougher players than you might even be playing against if you're in a second line role. Guys that are really going to be, targeting you. So that's the hard part about this right now is it is a younger man's league, but you got to find that spot.
If it was my guess, like with Marner, he's probably going to play with somebody like JVR and Tyler Bozak, a combo that has played together for years, so they can find out whether he can handle the league at a young age. Provorov, I agree with Russ. If he doesn't play a top pairing or a second pairing role, then you may as well send him back to the WHL and let him play another year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they do that, though. There's a lot of pressure on them not to do it. They are definitely coming out. The Flyers are definitely saying, the way they're talking, they're constantly setting people up for Provorov being sent back. They are really.
Well, I think Hextall is trying to temper expectations because, again, there are things that Provorov can do still in juniors, and the point is he does have a lot of defensemen that are pretty good. I mean, it's not like the Flyers' defense ended the season much better than the way it started. We could all agree on that. So if you're willing to upset that apple cart, they've got to really be ready. Like you've got to. I mean, he's literally got to be a top 4 guy.
Yeah.
They'll figure that out in this preseason. But again, if you're going to guess which way it's going to go, it's probably a better chance that he gets sent back, that he makes it simply because of the way the GM is, which is the right way.
Yeah, at this point. And we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So that's going to be fun. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks, guys. We will enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back on Monday to talk about the pending finals in the World Cup of Hockey. I did want to get in the rumor real quick, though. I did talk about this on my blog today, and and it's kind of not unpredictable that this name would come up because we talked about it many times coming up, and that is Kucherov's name coming up. Now, here's a guy, we talked about Tampa signing Hedman, and now teams see Kucherov, and he's looked good, you know, and he's continuing to look. He's looked really good at the World Cup. I mean, he's flying out there. He's definitely. You want to see who impresses, you know, among the impressive, and he has impressed among the impressive out there. One of the better Russian players, I think, in this tournament.
Yeah.
And he, you know, there's no question that teams are interested in him. An offer sheet might work out for Tampa because they look at it like, okay, we can't really sign this guy again. We could use the draft picks. We can look towards the future. I fully expect, you know, that teams will try to trade for him first.
Yeah, I would think so.
Before an offer sheet happens, and it'll be interesting to see what Tampa does. I have not gotten a great feeling about this negotiation though. Like just talking to people.
I don't think the negotiation's going well, but I also don't think Tampa wants to lose him for their cup run this year. I think that's really
I mean they can
place.
they can get him back in. I mean they could sign him to a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, but
yeah, but the
I don't know that that's the way they're leaning with him particularly.
But the rumor of an offer sheet being out there is consistent with him balking at the bridge deal or the 1-year deal.
Yeah.
This is his play to get that long-term deal, and if he doesn't get it from Tampa, this is like sort of like, you know, the Brandon Saad situation or the Ryan O'Reilly situation, where they're not going to take that bridge deal just to make the team that they're with right now, you know, everything fit. They want their money. He's put up a couple really good years. He wants to get paid. So, I mean, it may work for Tampa. They may have to clear somebody else out, but I mean,
but what if here's the tough part for a player. So what if a non-cup contender signs you to the offer sheet? Do you want the big salary or do you want a chance at winning the Stanley Cup? That's what he's going to have to grapple.
Yeah.
Well, right. Well, I mean, that's under his control because he can tell his agent, I don't want to sign an offer sheet with Columbus.
Well, yeah, he can sign with who he wants to sign with.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, it's hard to say. You know, I don't get a real read from Kucherov. You don't get
a choice when basically, I guess,
right.
Let me rephrase it. You don't get a choice when a team puts out the offer sheet. Like, he could decide he doesn't want to go there, but the idea is he can't he can't call that team and say, I'm not interested, take back your offer sheet. That doesn't happen.
Well, he can. I mean, he doesn't have to sign an offer sheet.
No, he doesn't have to sign it, but the team is definitely, once they tender it, then that does put certain things in motion no matter what.
Yeah, but if they tender it, that has to be with his approval. So there is a line there. I mean, you know, like Shea Weber, Shea Weber did want to sign with the Flyers. You know, that was, and you know, you can't blindly do it without the player approving it.
No, and I'm not saying that, but I guess it probably will make the player think. Like, if there's only one team,
right? You know, and that, there you're right. I mean, and that can change things. You know, and whether or not, like, a lot of the Russians are hard to read on these kind of things. Like, whether or not he's the kind of guy who wants to go for the money or wants to win a Stanley Cup, I don't really have a good grasp on him. Well, I've talked to him a couple times this week, actually, a little bit more than usual, but I still don't have a grasp on whether he's the kind of guy who would be going for the money or going for the cup, you know?
Well, I mean, there are certain situations in the league right now based on players who may never play again. For example, the Islanders with Mikhail Grabovski, the contract that he has, which is, I think, has like 3 or 4 years left at over $5 million, he may never play again because of concussion issues, which means he'll go on long-term injury.
Right.
That opens up $5.5 million of cap space for the Islanders. And, oh, by the way, they need a winger for a guy named John Tavares, so wouldn't Kucherov sort of fit into that role? And, you know, Russian players tend to like to go to Brooklyn.
And no one wants to give up all the draft picks, you know, to sign the big deal. That's the thing. So Tampa's in a spot where if Tampa can't sign him, they'll listen to offers. You know, they'll listen to trade offers. That's what happened with Shea Weber before. You know, the Rangers and the Flyers were both negotiating with the Predators before the Flyers put that offer sheet together. Right. Because the Flyers said, "Listen, offer sheet's coming one way or the other." And but you know, so the Predators had to talk to, and I think that we're getting to the point where teams are going to be doing this. It sounds like teams like, I've heard St. Louis, I've heard Montreal, I've heard Vancouver.
I mean, it definitely opens up a dialogue, and I guess that's the point I was trying to get across is if there's one team only, let's say, that will give him that money, then he has to then sort of make a decision on the spot.
Yeah.
Am I going for the money or am I going to stick with Tampa?
And, you know, and part of that decision could be based on his thinking, well, Tampa's going to match anything, you know, and if Tampa matches anything, then fine. But when you sign an offer sheet, especially a long-term offer sheet like Shea Weber did, you know, he knew that he was going to spend a long period of time. At the time, we thought the rest of his career. with either the Flyers or the Predators, right? So that's fine, and that's what's going to happen with Kucherov. If Columbus was to come in and put an offer sheet together, then he's going to either be a Blue Jacket or a Lightning for a long time. So.
Or they do the same thing that happened with Shea Weber, and he eventually gets traded.
Right? But the chances are, more often than not, usually when offer sheets are matched, that player does stay there.
The Shea Weber deal is proof that anybody can get traded.
Oh yeah, no, that really is, and I agree, and it also proves that even the franchises that you don't necessarily think would, like even the lesser franchises and the franchises that are the newer franchises, can make those deals. That was the thing that was crazy about Shea Weber, was that with all the money the Predators put up front for that deal, Montreal's really getting a bargain and a half. Like they're not
right.
I mean, they're getting a high cap hit, but they're not paying out the cash, which doesn't matter to the Canadians.
No, that's what was it like the first 4 years. Nashville paid a ton of money.
A ton of money, and there was a big money up front thing. Yes, the whole thing was that was. So that's where you thought once the Predators did that, you would think a team with budgetary constraints would keep him around, because they've already paid most of that contract. They're getting.
Now, I guess that brings you to this other gray area. So when you do sign an offer sheet, do those offer sheets generally have no trades? I'm assuming they don't.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I think there's a rule that they have to have a no trade for a little bit. I think
well, maybe for a little bit. Okay.
I think at least maybe the first 1 or 2 years. I remember there being a really weird rule in an offer sheet that you can't just sign an offer sheet.
You can't get an offer sheet signed and traded. I know that. So maybe there's that 1 year. I think there is a year. I think you're right.
At least a year.
Yeah, it's 1 year.
Yeah. So that's what it. So anyway, yeah, that's it. All right, guys, got to run. But remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will keep you informed over the weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Farewell.